The billionaire stopped cold when he saw what the poor nurse was doing. Under the harsh fluorescent lights of the hospital cafeteria, Marcus Hale watched in stunned silence as Emily Carter lifted a $20 bill from her purse and carefully placed it into a boy's backpack. The little boy, maybe 8 years old, had been waiting in line for the free meal. His mother had no insurance. His father was gone. Emily had come to the cafeteria every single day for 3 straight months, slipping food and small kindnesses into that boy's bag, sometimes paying for his lunch when the kitchen didn't have enough change. She did it with quiet dignity, never once asking for thanks or even a smile. Marcus Hale's hands tightened around the tray in his grip. He was Marcus Hale, the man who owned half the hospital this boy would be staying in if he got sick again. The man whose name made CEOs and politicians sit straighter. The man who had never once helped anyone he didn't have to. Not really. And here was this kind, exhausted nurse spending her own money on a stranger while he sat in a corner table eating $180 lamb chops like it was nothing. He set the tray down, took one step, then another, until he stood right behind her. "Emily," he said, voice low and rough from months of pretending to be a janitor named Mike Riley. She turned, startled. Her eyes widened. "Mr. Hale? What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," he said. He picked up the empty tray, then paused. "Tell me why you're doing this." She looked at the boy, then back at him, cheeks flushing. "He's alone. His mom works 2 jobs. I just wanted to help." Marcus felt something crack open inside his chest for the first time in 20 years. "You're not supposed to be doing this," he said. "You're supposed to be getting paid. You're supposed to be wearing a uniform and keeping your head down." Emily smiled softly. "Maybe I like my head up." He didn't argue. He just stood there, watching her slip another 20 into the boy's bag before she walked away. What happened next would change the life of a man who thought he already had everything. This is a story about the quiet heroes we pass every day, the power of kindness that money can't buy, and the day a billionaire finally learned that the woman in the white coat was stronger than any suit he could ever wear. If stories like this move you, take a second to subscribe. The twist will stay with you. Now let's begin. Marcus Hale had been pretending to be a janitor at Maple City Hospital for 6 weeks. He had spent the last 2 years in a quiet legal battle with his ex-wife over custody of their son, and the courts had ordered him to stay away from the city for at least 60 days. He had no choice but to disappear. So he bought a cheap pair of scrubs, grew a short beard, and started mopping floors and emptying trash at the hospital where his ex-wife worked as a nurse. He told himself it was just to wait it out, to stay out of the spotlight, to prove to everyone, including himself, that money and power meant nothing when everything else was gone. He never imagined he would fall in love with the very woman he was trying to avoid. Emily Carter had been a nurse at Maple City Hospital for 12 years. She was 29, kind, and the kind of person who made you feel like the world was a little less heavy just by standing near her. She worked night shifts when she could, volunteered at the children's wing, and never once complained about the long hours or the hard cases. The day Marcus saw her for the first time, he was wiping down a hallway when she stepped out of a patient room carrying a small paper bag. She glanced around, then walked straight to a little boy waiting by the vending machine. The boy's name tag read Tyler. He had been in the ER 3 times in the last month with asthma attacks. Emily knelt beside him, gentle as a mother. "Hey, Tyler, I saved you a snack. Peanut butter crackers. Extra chocolate chip." The boy's face lit up. He took the bag like it was gold. "You don't have to do that, Emily." She smiled. "I know, but I want to." Marcus watched from the shadows, heart beating harder than it had in years. She was so small, so exhausted, yet she gave everything she had to people who could never pay her back. He started noticing everything. How she stayed late to help with paperwork. How she listened to the scared parents even when her feet were killing her. How she gave her own lunch money to the kid who couldn't afford breakfast. And every single time, the same quiet voice in his head kept saying, "This woman is better than me. She's better than anyone I've ever met." Then one afternoon he saw the real reason behind her kindness. He was changing a light bulb in the supply closet when he heard footsteps. Emily walked in carrying 2 plastic bags. She set them on a shelf, then pulled out a $20 bill from her purse and tucked it into the boy's backpack that was sitting on the counter. Tyler was at school, but she had left it there for him. Marcus froze. The boy was 10 years old. His single mother worked at a gas station. They had no health insurance. The hospital had turned them away twice last month because they couldn't pay the copay for Tyler's medicine. Emily didn't have to do this. She had a rent due. She had student loans. She had nothing left to give. And she was giving it anyway. Marcus stood there in the supply closet, heart pounding, staring at the $20 bill that would never make it into the hospital's charity fund. It would go straight to a boy who had no idea who the kind nurse was. He stepped out of the closet and stopped cold when he saw her again. She was wiping tears from her eyes with the back of her hand, trying to look normal. "Emily," he said. She jumped. "Mr. Hale?" He picked up the empty tray from his cart and set it down. "Tell me why you're doing this. Every single time." She looked at the floor, then back at him, honesty in her eyes. "Because if I don't, who will?" He wanted to argue. He wanted to tell her she was wasting her money. He wanted to pull out his wallet and hand her $1,000 and never look back. But something stopped him. Something that had nothing to do with the suit he had been wearing under the scrubs. Instead, he said, "You're not wasting it. You're giving hope. And that's something money can't buy." She blinked, surprised. "You're the janitor, right?" He smiled for the first time in months. Something like that. That night, after his shift ended, he went to the hospital parking lot and watched her walk to her old car. He followed her home, not far, just enough to make sure she got there safely. He didn't know why. He told himself it was curiosity, but deep down he knew the truth. He had fallen for the woman he was supposed to stay away from. The next morning, he did something he had never done before. He went to the hospital administrator and asked for a day off. Then he went to the grocery store and bought groceries, enough for an entire family. He drove them to Emily's apartment and left them on her doorstep with a note that simply said, "Thank you for everything." Emily found the note that afternoon. She read it 3 times, then sat down on her couch and cried. She had no idea who had left the food, but she knew it was from the quiet janitor who had been mopping her hallways for weeks. And something in her heart told her he was more than he seemed. The first big test came 2 weeks later. Emily's mother had a heart attack. The hospital bills started piling up. Emily took every extra shift she could find, but it wasn't enough. She was about to have to take a second job at a fast food restaurant just to keep her apartment. On her lunch break, she walked into the cafeteria again. She pulled out her last 20 and walked straight to the kids' table where Tyler sat. She set the money on the table in front of him and said softly, "Buy yourself something sweet today." Tyler looked up at her with big eyes. "You don't have to do that, Emily." She smiled. "I know, but I want to." Marcus was standing at the far end of the cafeteria, pretending to check the mop bucket. He saw everything. He saw the way the boy looked at her like she was a miracle. He saw the way she looked at the boy like she was the only one who could save him. And that was when he made his decision. That night, he didn't go home. He stayed at the hospital until the last patient was settled. Then he walked back to the cafeteria, found Emily, and said, "Come with me." She followed him to his old truck in the parking lot. She thought he was going to fire her for something. Instead, he opened the passenger door and showed her the keys. "I'm taking you home," he said. She laughed, half in surprise, half in disbelief. "You're the janitor." "Exactly," he said. "And tonight I'm driving. Get in." She got in. She had no idea she was riding with a man who had spent 20 years building an empire he was about to hand over to someone else. The next morning, Marcus went back to his real life. He went to the hospital administrator's office and told the truth. He told them everything. The custody battle, the need to stay out of sight, the woman who had been giving her own money to strangers while pretending to be a janitor. The administrator blinked. "You're Marcus Hale?" He nodded. "And I'm done pretending." The board meeting that followed was the biggest shock of his life. They offered him his old job back. He accepted on one condition. He would only stay if he could start his own foundation. A foundation for single-parent families and children with special needs. He walked out of that meeting and went straight to the diner where he had been eating lunch every day. He called the owner and said, "I'm buying this place. And I'm keeping the waitress who has been giving away her money to kids who need it." The owner laughed. "She's still here, but you're going to have to ask her yourself." Marcus found Emily in the kitchen, washing dishes the same way she had been for the last 2 months. She looked up when he walked in. "I heard you were buying the diner," he said. She smiled. "I heard you were a billionaire." He stepped closer. "I was. Now I'm just a man who wants to spend the rest of his life making sure no one ever has to do what you did." She looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time she saw the man behind the scrubs. "I don't need saving, Marcus." "I know," he said, "but I need to give you something anyway. I need to show you that kindness doesn't have to be one way." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a simple silver locket with an engraving that read, "Not because of what you do, because of who you are." Emily's hands trembled as she took it. "Marcus," he smiled, "I know this isn't the way I would have done it if I had known you from the beginning. But I'm grateful I did, because I got to see the best part of you, the part you hide from everyone else." She opened the locket. Inside was a picture of the little boy she had been helping. She closed it slowly, tears in her eyes. "I was never pretending to be a janitor," he said. "I was waiting for the right moment to stop being afraid of caring too much." Emily took his hand. "Then stop being afraid. Because I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere." Outside, the sun came up over Maple City. A little boy named Tyler walked into the hospital for his checkup, and a nurse named Emily smiled at him the way she had smiled at him every single day, for no reason except that he needed it. And a man named Marcus Hale, once a billionaire, now just a man, stood at the window of the hospital cafeteria, watching her walk down the hall, heart full in a way money could never fill. The lesson is simple. The strongest people are not the ones with the most power. They are the ones who use that power to lift others up. Kindness is not a weakness. It is the greatest strength a person can have. And sometimes the best way to find yourself is to stop looking for yourself and start looking for someone who needs you more. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and share it so it can reach someone who needs it today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.